coast to coast, laughter, heritage, and heart, you're listening to Craic on the Coast, brought to you by the Father John Murphy Division of the Ancient Order of Hibernians here in Plymouth, Massachusetts. I'm your host, Michael Schilling, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Shaun Morgan. How you doing, Shaun?
Not too bad, Michael. Hello, folks. And it's outstanding to be back with you for another episode and a conversation that's going to be incredibly interesting to our listeners, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're joined by a very special guest, Mairéad Farrell TD from West Galway, that represents Sinn Féin. Mairéad is going to be in Boston on Tuesday, October 28th for an event titled The Commission for the Future of Ireland, where they're going to focus on the question of Irish unity, what the next steps look like. And we're thrilled to have her here to talk about the vision, the process, and the people driving this important conversation forward. Mairéad, welcome to Craic on the Coast.
I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I'm really looking forward to going to Boston. Never been to Boston. So in the short period that I will be there, I expect nothing less than seeing all the great sites, all the best pubs, and all the best restaurants. What can I say? Even if I'm only there for 24 hours.
Hey, it'll be one heck of a 24 hours.
No sleep.
Yeah. Let's start by having our listeners get to know a little bit about you. I might be a little bit biased because of where my roots are from, but I think you represent one of the most beautiful parts of the island,
Of course.
Galway. But tell us about yourself and your path that got you into public life and politics and everything from there.
Yeah, well, it is definitely like, I mean, some would say that I may be biased, but sometimes maybe we're just factually correct, Michael. Like, it's very clear that Galway West is the best constituency in all of Ireland, north, south, east, west, because we have Galway City, which is obviously so known for its culture, its music, its crack. And then we have Connemara, which everybody knows is one of the most beautiful parts of Ireland. And then we have actually 4 offshore islands. So people might know the 3 Aran Islands, Inishmore, Inishmeon, and Inisheer. We actually also have Inishbofin. So there you go. It makes my workload entertaining and interesting because there's so many different, different types of lives that people live, whether they live an island life, and there's 4 different islands, depending on how many people even live on that island. Inishbofin, for example, doesn't have a secondary school. Then there's Galway City, very urban centre, maybe not a big city in Boston type standards, but for Ireland, it is a big city. And then we have Connemara. So it's certainly an interesting spot.
Sure. I mean, and your district is a Gaeltacht, so you get a lot of
Yes.
Irish culture influence in that area, which is great. I know.
Oh, absolutely.
Shaun would argue. Shaun's from West Belfast, so.
I would argue very, very differently, and that's okay. But you're entitled to your opinions.
I would just say West is best, whether it's been Belfast or the west of Ireland. Is that a good politician's answer?
That is.
You think I did this for a living?
I know. So obviously, jumping in, just getting the meat of it. You're coming to Boston next week for the Commission of the Future of Ireland. Update us. Now, what is the commission? What's its purpose?
Yeah, so it's actually really exciting. So it's something that we've been doing now for a good period of time, a number of years. And I've been involved, actually, we had one in the first Gaeltacht one was actually on in Connemara. And then we also had another one. And look, we've had numerous of these. And really what it's about is the conversation of Irish unity is happening, right? We all know it is, right? We know that from, our friend groups, from our workplaces, everything. People are talking about Irish unity. And it's about bringing kind of people together to have that conversation. What are the next steps towards Irish unity? What are thoughts on Irish unity? What I always say is that no 2 people will have the same outlook, the same view when it comes to Irish reunification. And so take, for example, Louis O'Hara. He's a TD in Galway East. Me and him, both from Galway, both, proud Irish Republicans, will of course have different views of exactly how an Irish unity will look, when we're reimagining what Ireland can look like in unity, then, so it's really important that we plan, that we prepare, and that we have a situation that when there is a Irish unity referendum, that we're prepared for that. And I think we can, being prepared can only be of benefit. So that's why we're looking forward to coming to Boston, to talking to people in Boston, And of course, everybody will know Galway and Boston have very, very strong connections. And, you know, they always say in Connemara, next stop Boston, you know, because geographically even, you know, it is next stop Boston. And it'll be really good to hear what people from Boston who are living in Boston, who may have been born in Ireland, may have Irish heritage, who are strong believers in Irish unity, what their views are. So that's what I'm really looking forward to hearing. You know, it'll be a very interesting conversation to have.
You know, it's interesting, and it's timely because our previous show that we had, it was talking with a documentary filmmaker who did a documentary about Brexit and its effects on the Good Friday Agreement. And one of the comments Sean had made during that episode was that it's about having conversations that they never had during Brexit, but they're trying to start the conversation now so that people are ready for the referendum and what the major hurdles are going to be for a united Ireland, and like you said, for what it would look like and how it will get there. So I commend you for coming all this way to talk to us about it.
Well, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. It is, because it's always interesting, like, you know, people who live in different places have different views. You know, if you have, you know, somebody from Galway will have a different view than somebody from Donegal or from Kerry or from Derry, you know, so it will be very interesting just to hear that kind of point of view, and also people who have emigrated, and, you know, what they want to see as a future of their country. So I think that would be really, really beneficial. And the way it's going to work is, I think it's going to be like, you know, me kind of in conversation initially with the host, and then it'll be broken up into workshop groups. So it really will be, you know, people's views. This isn't me coming, giving a speech and leaving again. This is about foundation blocks, I suppose, you know, starting listening to the views and then going forward from that. So it's not just, you know, me saying, giving a 10-minute speech, leaving, and that would be the end of it. This is about people's views and how we can all, as Irish Republicans, work together towards Irish unity, you know, and we all have different points of view. We all come from different backgrounds, all those kind of things. But on this issue, you know, we are united and we can work together to achieve our common goal.
Great. And I think that actually answers the next question we had, right, Sean, about what the format of the event was going to be.
Of the event, yep.
Yeah.
Well, look, I mean, I'll make sure the event goes well, and then you can organize the afters of it. Is that maybe the deal that we'll have?
Yeah, we'll swing around. There's a Donegal fella owns a pub around the corner, so we'll make sure we're there.
What part of Donegal? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I'll ask him when I see him this week.
I'll have to find out so I can make all the connections that I know in that area. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be Ireland if we didn't do that.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all.
That's it. That's it.
So you're obviously speaking about preparing for change, which that's the question. How do we get there? Does the commission, in your view, help put some structure around that idea? A way to start talking about what unity could actually look like?
Yeah, so look, I mean, if we are serious about Irish reunification, so there's a few things, right? The Good Friday Agreement sets out very clearly that there would be a unity referendum, North and South, on the same day. And it's laid out in the Good Friday Agreement. I mean, I was 8 years old when the Good Friday Agreement came about. So, you know, this is a long time that could have been used for preparation. What we need to see now from the Irish government is citizen assembly on reunification. So people may know or may not know that whenever there be citizens assemblies on key issues. And that allows all sides to come together in a meaningful way, in a way that everybody's listening to each other, and, you know, everybody's different sides can come out, and that gives the preparatory work. And that's what we need here for this Irish unity referendum, is that we need to do the preparatory work. So in the absence of the government doing this, this is what the Commission of the Future of Ireland is doing. They are starting that preparatory work, listening to experts, listening to people from different sides, listening to people's worries, concerns. Let's have that conversation. It can only be of benefit to us if we have the conversations with each other and talk through. To me, Irish unity is an inevitability. So as a result of that, we need to prepare for it. But equally, we can't be complacent and we need to work for it. I always think, you know, it's almost like, you know, in terms of Irish freedom, it's been a marathon and we're kind of towards the end, and we just need to give that really final push to make sure that we succeed.
Great stuff. Now,
So no pressure to anybody that's coming, but like we expect great things. And if they aren't great, I'll be coming back because I'm going to Philadelphia and I'll be telling the Philadelphia people if they're better or worse than the Boston crew. So the Boston crew need to be tip top.
oh,
I don't think you're going to have any problems with that, Mairéad. No, just diving in on the back of that, and whether this is your thoughts as the representative coming out, or Sinn Féin's perspective. But what role does the diaspora have to play in these conversations and shaping what a new Ireland could look like?
Well, like we've always known that the diaspora has had a huge role. Take Good Friday Agreement, for example. The diaspora has had a huge role. Take Brexit, for example. The diaspora in the US had a big role, and also lobbying within Europe and the EU, like I say, as well. So like we do know that diaspora has massive impact on an international scale. So it is really crucially important. So there's that aspect of things in terms of what the diaspora can do on a local level, right, where they are. But there's also, like, to me, like, there's the aspect of, like, these are Irish citizens or Irish people that have views and they need to be listened to. Just because somebody emigrated doesn't mean that their views aren't as important and necessary to hear, to shape it. And also, people in different locations have different perspectives. So I think in that sense, it'll be really fascinating. But there will be coming out of this then the building blocks of what will happen next, and I think that's crucially important too. It's not just being, a once-off thing. It'll be then moving forward. And that'll be explained at the event as well.
Sure. Now, to give our listeners who, you said your schedule is fast paced and you're hitting a lot of the major cities along the eastern seaboard, but obviously there's a lot of area outside of Boston, Philadelphia, Hartford. For those people that can't get to the events and be directly involved, how can they go about kind of getting beyond the events themselves and get their thoughts and questions heard?
Yeah, so what we always do is we like take notes at these kind of events, but then there's also the opportunity to share with the Commission on the Future of Ireland. If you take that and if you even just Google that, you'll find a direct way to contact them. Or indeed, if you contact friends of Sinn Féin in the US, there are two ways to easily contact and give your views. Because of course, everybody can't make these things. Everybody has their own lives and different things can be in the way. So definitely, if you have views, get in touch. Like the more views we have, absolutely the better it is. So I think that'll be good. So yeah, and of course, if you can make it to Boston, if you can make it to Hartford or indeed to Philadelphia, we'd be absolutely delighted to see you there.
Great. Do you want to go with the
So getting back, yeah, I was going to say, so getting back, Mairéad, I mean, obviously a big part of this is the Good Friday Agreement, which ultimately was the last cross-border referendum that really took place. It's setting the framework for the work that you're doing. I mean, it's hard to believe that we're coming up on 30 years since the Good Friday Agreement. It remains the foundation of peace and political process, especially, me being from the north of Ireland, and everything that we do is shaped around the Good Friday Agreement for good and bad. It's an imperfect document. For everyone listening, how does the GFA continue to shape the unity conversation that's going on at these forums?
I think it's because it's fundamentally within the Good Friday Agreement, that there should be a unity referendum, that there will be a unity referendum on a certain date. I mean, it states that it is up to the British Secretary of State to make that call. Of course, we know that realistically that means that a British government would make that call. There needs to be an Irish government that's preparing for unity, that is putting pressure on the British government to have that conversation, to set a date for a unity referendum. As we often know, power comes from the bottom up, and it's people who put pressures on their local politicians, be it politicians in Boston, be it politicians in the west of Ireland, wherever else it may be, to get this going. Sometimes I think like the government is a bit on the back foot in relation to this, and they're behind the people, which happens an awful lot in referendums. Like you would notice when referendums, it tends to come from, say, people wanting to change something, and it is the politicians that are kind of last on the kind of last on the list in terms of figuring out that this needs to be done. So I think that's probably, in that sense, the Good Friday Agreement absolutely is a kind of a foundational document in relation to that, because it sets out very clearly that there should be a unity referendum. But of course, that's nothing new for people who believe in Irish unity, you know. And I think that, but that is, I suppose, a building block on it. But, you know, I do often think that, you know, we as Irish Republicans in this generation, or who are now living in this current time, do have a sense of responsibility, and that we should, we need to push this on. We can't become complacent in relation to it. And sometimes everybody's lives gets very busy, and, you know, while they have it in their hearts of hearts that they really want Irish unity, they're not bringing it into the day-to-day lives and the day-to-day politics that they do. And that's something that we really need to try and do, you know, and that's something that I would like to spur on in this conversation as well. How can we all do more to attempt to achieve Irish unity?
Well, for a lot of people, like you said, it could almost seem like an abstract term, you know, something that's possible, but to get it to that real point, it could be overwhelming. But talking about the road ahead, I mean, what do you see, whether it's input that you have received from other, you know, commissions and the work that's been done so far? What do you see as the biggest challenges going forward, whether it's politically or economically or socially or?
Do you mean in terms of when Irish unity happens, or in
Correct.
terms of barriers for people voting for?
Oh, well, really both.
I think listen to people, and we need to see what are the questions. One of the documents that we as a party produced was in relation to the economic benefits of a united Ireland. That was a document that dealt with a lot of the queries that people have. And I always think if we're armed with the facts, then that's the best way we can kind of go forward. Another thing is obviously the issues in relation to the healthcare system. What kind of healthcare system will we have after United Ireland? These are all things, though, that do, like, we've prepared documents and all that, but they are things that need to be discussed in Citizen Assembly and laid out very clearly. People need to know what they're voting for. And there can sometimes be referendums where people don't feel that they know exactly what they're voting for. And worldwide, I mean, now that can happen. So, like, we need to be prepared, and we need to make sure that we like, you know, can win this on the basis of facts and people knowing what they're actually voting for. So I think those are probably some of the key issues that come up in conversations. But of course now it'll be a question of, like, you wouldn't know what'll come up as a main issue and concern during a referenda. Sometimes things get thrown up that you haven't even thought about.
I know.
Yep. I mean, I think, sorry, I was going to say, Mairéad, I mean, that lays out the biggest aspect. I always reflect on what took place in Brexit, which was just, here's a yes, no question, and we'll figure the facts out afterwards, as opposed to what's happening here is, here are the potential hurdles, here are the avenues to give everyone on the island. This is ultimately, here's a document, much like Good Friday Agreement. Here's what you're voting on, take time to read it, and then go from there.
Yeah, it's important that people know what they're voting on. It's not fair to ask people to vote on something that they aren't sure about, you know? I don't think.
Now, on the other side of the coin, let's not just talk about hurdles, let's talk about optimism. What have you seen in going around and talking with people in Ireland and in your district and across the entire island of Ireland that makes you feel that we're ready for this? We're ready to push forward and ready to have, you know, get over the finish line.
I always think if you scratch below the surface of most Irish people, they will deep down want to see Irish unity. You know, I think there's that in us. But what we need to do is obviously make sure that people are prepared for it. I think more and more people realise that Irish unity is an inevitability, that it doesn't make sense to have kind of two states that aren't realising their full potential on a small island in a small country. Like, we have a country here that could do so much economically even, or socially, culturally, all those things, if we just worked as one, if we worked together. And one of the things that always stands out to me, like, before partition, Belfast was like a booming industrial town or city, and like that has changed, you know. So, like, why has that changed? Because partition has failed. So I think that there's so much that can be done. And also what's actually incredible is that we have an opportunity to reimagine the kind of society we want to live in. Who gets that? What kind of generation actually gets that opportunity to say, well, hold on a second. We want to do things differently now. We want to do X. We want to do Y. We can want to do whatever it may be. And we would have that opportunity to do that. That's an incredible opportunity. Who gets that as an opportunity? I think that in itself should motivate people to want this. And I think that is something that can be so incredibly exciting if we look at it properly.
I agree with everything that you're coming back with, and Mairéad, it's very, I don't know, it's something that I don't know from talking with my grandmother who emigrated here. I don't think it's something that she ever thought would happen, and it didn't happen in her lifetime. But the idea that people here that are generations and sons and daughters of immigrants that would actually get the opportunity to see it occur. I mean, it would be a momentous occasion. That is for sure.
Can you imagine the pride, the celebration, the feeling of like hope for the future that we would have? You know, I just think, and I really strongly believe in the self-determination of all people. I believe that it is the right of people to make decisions for themselves. And at the moment, that is not the case for people in the North, like given budget constraints, all those kind of different things. And I just think that's something that, as somebody who believes in democracy, you know, that should be an inevitable, like, should be a clear thing that all people deserve. And then that allows them to plan for their future. It allows them to, you know, make decisions on their own for their own future, for themselves, for their families, for their grandchildren,
And then getting that, the optimism that does exist, and the pessimism, because there's going to be pessimism both sides of the border as well. But with regards to both sides of the border, do you think there's enough being done at governmental level to have these conversations? I mean, we see Sinn Féin is pushing this across. There are some other parties that are having these conversations, but are the parties who are in power being proactive in this, or are they ultimately they're just going to be reactive, or
it's
not active, perhaps, is maybe another aspect.
Yeah, look, I mean, I have raised it with Taoiseach, so I've raised it with Micheál Martin, I raised it with Leo Varadkar regularly when I had the opportunity to do so. And even tonight, we're bringing forward a motion to the Dáil about Irish unity. And that's a motion that will be debated at the Dáil. I don't know how the government will vote in relation to that. But like I have consistently been raising this with Taoiseach, and they just seem, I don't know, I don't know why. Are they worried? Does it make them nervous? What it is? I'm unsure. You would think that a Taoiseach would only love under their, government, under them being Taoiseach, to bring forward, an Irish unity referendum. History would look well on whatever Taoiseach does do that. So purely in that sense, it beggars belief sometimes to me that the Taoiseach have not done that.
Now, what message would you give to, obviously, what you and the commission is trying to do is get the diaspora actively involved in the discussions and what it's going to look like when it's completed, and just getting them engaged. What would you say to the diaspora with regards to what a united Ireland could mean for them, just as much as people that still live in the island of Ireland?
I think what unites us is our pride in Ireland, our hope for Ireland, and a really good future for the people who can and want to live in Ireland. And I think that should all unite us as Irish people, whether it be that our grandparents come from Ireland, whether it be that we were born there and left at a choice or had to leave. So I think us being able to build a better future for everyone, for all the Irish people, is something that I think unites us. We may have different views on different things. All of us may have that. But if we can just work together in our common purpose of delivering a united Ireland, then we can be extremely powerful. And we need to remember how powerful that we can actually be, the impact that we can have on this and the change that we can deliver. That is in all of us and up to all of us. And if we work together, we can do it. So I think that is why, like, the power that it gives us.
It's funny, I was at a national AOH event this weekend, and our national president made the comment that there's the book that's written that, Ireland saved civilization. And
Mm.
he said, with the way the world is now, he goes, it might just have to be us that does it again, just by, you teach through being a good representative and being a good mentor. And I think that goes a long way. So,
Yeah, and I think that it is something that so many Irish people want. Like, I think that Sean's family should have the same rights as my. Well, actually, I have no family in Galway, so what am I talking about? But my family are West Belfast as well. But all our families from West Belfast should have the same rights as a family, like your family, Michael, who are in Galway. So I think that's incredibly important, and I think that anybody who believes in equality and self-determination of our people and in Irish freedom should really, realize that this is an opportunity and that there is an onus on us. There is an onus on us, like, to work on this. We're living in a time as Irish Republicans that it's a lot easier to be Irish Republicans than generations before us. So there is an onus on us to now deliver that.
I mean, it's another aspect. It's Ireland's story, and then getting back into the event next week, and Boston is one of the focal points, especially the tie, and the ties between Galway and Boston. I mean, you stand down in the
Mm-hmm.
harbour in Galway, it's signposted where Boston is.
Mm-hmm.
We look out at Boston Harbour and we know, rough geographic location where to get to Galway from there.
Will you try it next
But
week with me?
obviously,
Way back.
unfortunately, I won't be in Boston next week. But um, the the question ultimately I have is, this really is it's a ground swelling aspect. These conversations are taking place, whether it's taking place in the Dáil on a regular basis. It's taking place in football clubs, whether it be rugby, GAA clubs, churches. I mean, the conversations. I was just back home in Ireland last week. I was in Dublin, up in Donegal, Derry, Belfast for a few days, and the conversation's happening. It's happening within university spheres as well. How do we keep that going forward at a bigger level? Because the more conversations happen, the more light is drawn to it. And as we said at the top of the show as well, Irish America has a key role to play in that, as they did with the entire peace process, with the Good Friday Agreement, in helping make sure that this comes along. And ultimately, whatever the outcome is, Irish American politicians will have to get involved as well. And does Sinn Féin have a strategy on that? Are there plans to be holding more events beyond next week on a regular basis? And again, I'm just charting out, should Michael and I be clearing slots for a regular time for someone from Sinn Féin to be coming onto the show to talk about the work that's being done?
Yeah, look, I mean, so this is really the first step. And I know John Finucane was in San Francisco there a while back with something similar, and these things will be rolled out all over the United States. And it will literally be the foundation blocks. But what will be important to hear next week really is what the people who live there, the Irish Republicans who live there, who believe in United Ireland, what they think their role can be as well. You know what I mean? Rather than me coming and saying you need to do X, Y, and Z, although I don't know your structures, I don't fully understand all those things, it is really important as well to hear what people think their role can be. Obviously, I'll hope to be able to meet some politicians over there, Irish American politicians, probably particularly, but anybody who might have an interest in Irish unity, I'd be willing to meet, I suppose. But to discuss this as well, to build those links. I think that's really important as well. But it will be important to listen to what people locally think, I think, because they know, what access you have to politicians. You know what I mean? You know what your GA clubs are looking like, what influence they can have, or whatever else it may be. You're so much Irish dancing, all those things. How can it all be interwoven? Like the people that live there know best. So I think that's why it'll have that kind of workshop vibe where people can bring, their ideas. Those ideas will be collected, and they will be taken seriously. This is really the foundation blocks of where we want to go going forward. And that's why it's so important.
Yeah, I'm glad you were able to really describe what the event's going to be like, because I think the fact that it is how you're speaking, where it's going to be a workshop and you're going to have an active role. It's not just coming to the hall and listening to you speak on the subject. I think that would bring a lot more people interested in to feel like they're going to be heard while they're there. So I think that's a great format to have.
Yeah, it just makes more sense because, there's no point me saying XYZ when XYZ doesn't work, for you in your locality. Like, so it'll be good to listen. And obviously, look, at the end of the day, if people have certain questions about what's happening in Ireland at this moment in time, I'm more than happy to try my best to answer those as well. So, you can just like I'll be going around all the tables. There'll be different tables for that's the way the format will be. There'll be different tables. People can be as vocal or as not vocal as they want to be, that kind of way. And I'll be going around, we'll be listening, we'll be taking notes, and I'll be going around speaking to each of the tables. And if people have different questions or whatever it may be, I'm more than happy to do my best to answer them as well. Like, I do think it's also important that Irish politicians come over and, have those discussions and listen to views.
Now at the event, it sounds like really in depth and there's going to be a lot going on. Is it just going to be you, or are there going to be other individuals involved with the event itself?
So there will be people from Friends of Sinn Féin as well,
Okay.
who will be there they are going to all of these, all of the ones that have been happening, they are going to all of them. So they'll be able to pick up a theme as well in relation to what's being said, if there's clear themes coming out. So I think that'll be good too.
Great. Okay. Do you have anything else, Sean, before we let Mairéad go?
No, I mean she's got some things to be doing in the Dodge tonight as well. So just obviously my thanks in the work that's being done, as someone from the north who doesn't have a voice at times, even as well with the upcoming election, that's taking place, which is incredibly important. That these conversations are taking place and inclusive of those who are from the north, inclusive of those who are in the United States and beyond. And we're just incredibly hopeful for the outcome, for everyone, for Ireland as a whole, north, south, east, west, green and orange as well. What was supposed to have happened in 1916 can actually come to fruition within our lifetime, which we never thought we were going to get here at some point. So,
yeah, absolutely, and it's on us now to do that. And I really truly believe that we can do this. So let's get it done.
No. Well, Mairéad, thank you for joining us today on Craic on the Coast. Your insight into the event, it's deeply appreciated. And for our listeners, don't miss in Boston the Commission for the Future of Ireland event at Florian Hall on Tuesday, October 28th. It's a chance to be part of the conversation that's shaping, the notes say next, I would say our chapter in Irish history. That's how I would put it. If you're going to be part of this process, you are going to be part of history when it's all said and done. So I thank you for coming on.
For me, Maggie.
And
thank you, Brett.
And that's it for this episode of Craic on the Coast. If you've enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, share it with a friend. And if you've got a story to tell or a topic you'd want us to cover, you can email us at craiconthecoast@gmail.com. That's CRAIC on the coast@gmail.com. And from us to you, until next time, Song of Foil.